Sam, and I'm speaking to you today about Saturn in Sagittarius. So when Saturn is in Sagittarius, it takes that planet of commitment, focus, maturity, determination, and brings it into the realm of Sagittarius, which has to do with inspiration and purpose, aligned with our teachings, and how those things give us enormous inspiration and purpose. So Sagittarius can be really understood by things such as religion, our beliefs and our philosophies. Many people, you might even say, well, I'm not religious, I don't believe in religions. Whatever you believe in is the domain of Sagittarius, whether it's a formal religion or not. We all have something that we believe in, otherwise we wouldn't be alive anymore. And those beliefs are shown most notably by Sagittarian principles, or mainly by Jupiter, the planet that rules Sagittarius. Jupiter looks for higher meaning and purpose and a philosophy that explains that higher purpose, those things beyond the world. And Sagittarius is the active feeling of Jupiter. So Pisces is the reflective emotional quality of Jupiter, where we internalize and become internally expansive and philosophical, and usually creates more of a mystical quality of Jupiter. Sagittarius is more the expressed, externalized nature of Jupiter, so that quest for meaning and purpose becomes more active, like an action. So it can be more black and white because it's fiery. It'd be like this religion, not that one. This way of thinking, not that one. That's more of Sagittarius. But it's also dual, so it's looking for a lot of different philosophies. But it's delineating rather than integrating, because through Pisces, Jupiter becomes much more of an integrative, mystical, where has this idea that, well, they're all inspiring. I'm inspired by all of it. And I'm just inspired by life through the heart. The heart integrates, and the mind, especially fire, discriminates and delineates. So through Sagittarius, that quality of Jupiter is very much about delineating this teaching from that teaching, has more of a quality of righteousness, which can also turn into dogma, judgment. For good or bad, we need to have judgment and discrimination about a lot of things. So it's not a judgment to say that the Pisces mysticism is better, because Pisces mysticism can not have a lot of discrimination or a lot of judgment. Everything is great, everything is fine. Well, if everything is great or fine, then it's hard to know it's hard to stay on track. Sagittarius is a quality of Jupiter that keeps us on a trajectory and keeps us on track. Even the name is Danu, which has to do with a bow and arrow. Shooting an arrow, boom, and there it goes. It's on track. So Sagittarius also comes after Scorpio, where we have the imagined fears and where we feel the vulnerability of the emotions. We feel emotionally vulnerable, and and the way to overcome that emotional vulnerability and that understanding that we don't have control, which is the big fear of Scorpio, that lack of control. And again, because we can't control ourselves, we try to control others. That's the difficult quality of Scorpio. After that, we say, all right, that's just the nature of life, is vulnerability. I'm not in control. And that's very inspiring and beautiful, so I need to find something that's beyond all of the control issues and the fears and stresses of this earth, which is the Sagittarius principle. So Scorpio becomes Sagittarius in that way, where we give up the illusion of control and find something to inspire us. And it might not be very inspiring. It could be something very fanatical even. This is where all kinds of religions, be they pure or fanatical or whatever, come into play. Stereotypically is through the Sagittarius principle. So Saturn in Sagittarius, we take this quality of Saturn, which is that realization that we're not going to live forever, nothing is forever, that limiting structure that's placed over everything on this earth. The realization of those limits come through Saturn. That's how we feel it. We feel the pain of those limits. We only have so much power, so much intelligence, so much love, so much time, so much courage, because Saturn makes us aware of those limits. And that can be depressing if we don't know who we really are. So that pain and limit of Saturn can really harm us and hurt us and dominate us until we become introspective and look to that which is beyond. Because the ultimate limitation itself is our ego. Saturn shows us the limitations of the ego. We don't understand who we really are. We identify with this limiting structure, these limitations, and then we just let the fear of that send us on some mission to try to control and fix it all, rather than send us on a mission to fix the real mistake, which is that we don't know ourselves. That's the big problem, the only problem. There's only one problem. So in this video I'm going to tell you the only problem, there's only one, and that's you don't know yourself. You think you're this limited entity. And we become aware of the pain of that mistake through Saturn. And through the mistakes we make trying to fix it. It's like, okay, you think you're just that, and you're determined to try to make that philosophy work? Have at it. See what happens. What's going to happen is you're going to realize no matter what, you can't fix it. The body's going to break down, time is going to make everything, it's going to take everything away. So you move that nature of Saturn, which wants to commit and focus, and which is aware of our mistakes and the pain of them, and you move them into Sagittarius, which is that sign of inspired purpose, that sign of that comes after Scorpio, looking for higher meaning and purpose. And you see where we are now, where someone is ready to commit and focus and be real and practical about creating, let's say, socially or externally, structures that support their higher meaning and purpose, rather than structures that allow them to control their fears and worries and stresses, which is Saturn and Scorpio. We move on from that, and we're looking to create a structure that supports our hopes, inspirations, higher purpose. So that means globally, culturally, and personally, we're less manipulatable. We're less able to be manipulated through our fears and stresses and worries, and we're going to be looking more to be inspired and looking to see, is this really an inspiring purpose that I'm being given? And we're looking to commit to what inspires us rather than what we're afraid of, rather than trying to control what we're afraid of. We just had recent elections in 2016 with Saturn in Scorpio, the end of that transit with Mars, and we had all kinds of political elections and upheavals that had mainly to do with this thing is more scary than that thing. This candidate is scarier than that candidate. Watch out for these people, these foreigners. And we were very able to be manipulated through our fears. Now we're going to be focused on what inspires us. At least shared karma around that time is going to revolve more around what inspires us, not what we're afraid of. And focusing on that. Individually, it's also a time for us to be individually more focused on what inspires us. So with our spiritual practices and spiritual sadhana, it's important to make peace with those imagined fears and those stresses, and sink into the realization that we're never going to control all of that, and instead really land into the notion of our teachers and our gurus and our need to put those things into practice, because Saturn is the great planet of commitment to what inspires us, or to what we're afraid of. Again, that whole thing of love or fear, what are you focusing on? The focus and the commitment is Saturn. Saturn is where the great things in our life emerge, because we're focused on them and we're committed to them. Look at anything you've done in your life, it's because you had a commitment to it, and you didn't give up on it just because it was difficult. This is the hallmark of Saturn. It's easy to do something when it's easy. When something gets more difficult and you have to still do it, you flex your muscles, you get a lot of muscle, you build a lot of muscle. This is why Saturn rules the muscle, dhatu, as well. Because when you do something for a long time, you build your muscles. And Saturn builds those karmic muscles. Because wherever Saturn goes, our attention gets more narrow. Because we realize, I don't have energy or time to waste or burn in this area of life. So when it's in Scorpio, we become much more fearful. And we spend a lot of that energy trying to control our fears and concentrate our energy and stabilize what feels very unstable, because Scorpio is also watery and it's fixed and it's emotional. So we spend a lot of time trying to maintain this structure in a watery environment, and we can get kind of paranoid and carried away. Sagittarius, it's a dual sign. So it's a lot of changing philosophies and ideas. So we need to be careful to not try to control a lot of competing ideas. Let them exist, but stay focused on what's of highest value. And stay focused on what inspires us the most. One of the things we always have to be careful of with Saturn in Sagittarius is a kind of rigid application of our beliefs, because Sagittarius is what we believe, and Saturn again wants to put it in a container and manage it. So again, when this can lead to a kind of dogmatic approach, because it's much easier to just say, like the old bumper sticker I used to see, God said it and I believe it and that settles it. Which misses so much, right? But making something simple. In this case, again, we want to be inspired by we want to be committed, Saturn, to what inspires us, Sagittarius. So we may be tempted to just make it simple. Make it simple so I can make a commitment to it. Okay, I voted for this person, so that's it. I'm committed to whatever they do. Or I'm American, so that's it. That's what I'm standing behind. Or, I'm for all people, so that's it. That's what I'm focused on. Whatever it is. It's easy for us to sort of collapse around our dogma. That's the danger always with Saturn, which is sort of collapsing around something, and Jupiter, which is dogma, which is making it simple, especially in Sagittarius. But again, the power is literally kind of like a bow in an arrow. Because what happens with Saturn is it's all this energy. We usually concentrate our energy on 50 different things. We're focused on this, we're focused on that, and we're not really focused on any of it. We're just kind of expending energy and prana, or life force, which is Saturn, on a whole bunch of things. When we take all of that, bring it all together, and just focus it on a couple things, let's say just one thing. Let's say we're only focused on spiritual liberation. Then it's really sort of analogous to how that bow, when you pull it back, like the Danu, is only focused on one thing. All of the energy in the bow. The bow doesn't have that much energy. If you were to spread that bow, the energy of that string across, let's say the energy of one bow and one arrow, if you just took that energy and you spread it across 10 bows, you'd probably be able to shoot the arrow 10 feet. But because you're concentrating all of the energy of the bow onto one arrow, you can shoot it 100 feet. You understand? That concept of focus. Because we're so unfocused, we hardly even know what focus is. So think of the things that you focused on, and you stay focused on, even though they're difficult. I say this like I have a lot of astrology students. Think of how many times you wanted to give up. Like at the beginning of one of my courses or something, and you're like, oh, this is so hard. And I come in and say, look, just stay with it. Just focus on it. Don't give up on it like you give up on other things, and you'll see it works. And again, this requires faith. I have a lot of students, and because they have faith in me as a teacher, because they've seen me do it, or they hear me say something, and they've seen other students who also benefited. Again, we look for evidence of faith. This is the combination, this is the unification of Sagittarius and Gemini. We look for evidence, Gemini, to have faith, Sagittarius. While other people said they learned, other people said that it was hard and then they pushed through it. So, okay, I have faith that if I do this, I will also get the benefit. So I say have faith and have enough faith to stay focused. And then you'll get results. That's basically saying stop trying to shoot 10 bows at the same time in 50 directions. Like you hear me talk in videos about people who try to learn astrology and they're just pulling this, pulling that, pulling this, pulling that. They're not getting any momentum. It's like it's like shooting these arrows, shooting arrows 10 feet at a time and wondering why you're not able to, hunt any prey or kill the prey, or if that's what you're trying to do with the bow. Because you're taking all this, you're taking the same energy of one bow. You need to have one bow and shoot it in one direction. That's where all the momentum is. So you can apply that metaphor for really anything in your life, for Saturn in Sagittarius. That's the power, is to focus and gather our attention and our awareness around the couple things that are most important. And we're only doing a couple things. We have our health and our identity and our awareness. How are we focused? Are we really focusing on it? Or are we like half the time we eat well, half the time we don't? Sometimes we do meditation, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do this, sometimes we don't. We're unfocused. If we stay focused on that and just, okay, now I'm going to take care of my body and my nutrition and my hydration. Okay, I'm going to try to do the right thing. I know what it is, but I just can't stay focused because I'm distracted by my senses, because I want to eat the chocolate bar and the half gallon of ice cream because it tastes good. Again, Venus, this is why Venus distracts Jupiter stuff. Simple little side lesson, okay? This is why Sagittarius and Pisces get distracted by Venus. This is why they're enemies. Let's say other things, like then we also have our work and our career. We're kind of focused on it, we're kind of not. We get all hung up in our insecurities about why we can't do more, or we're aware of our mistakes and stepping up bigger. Other people are more popular. Who wants to hear from me? I might make a mistake. I might look foolish. I might get, trolled on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So we don't step up as big as we can. We have focus on our relationships. Okay, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm focused, sometimes I'm not. So Saturn in Sagittarius really gives us the capacity to really focus the energy we have in the way it needs to be and the way we know is right. We just have to watch our beliefs and be careful of what we're focusing on, like I said, because it can also collapse into a sort of dogma, a sort of dogmatic religion about things. So you might be relentlessly focused on something, but the focus needs to be kind of loosened up a little bit, and you need to kind of aim the bow a little bit better. Again, that's the other, perhaps, metaphor. So rather than, it's not enough to just have a bow pointed at something. The Saturn in Sagittarius can make us really concentrate all the energy in just one bow, but then we need to also make sure it's aimed correctly. We can't just say, okay, all of my energy is aimed, now I'm just going to shoot the arrow into anything. So the example would be, even let's say about the astrology study. Maybe you said, okay, you're right, I need to just be more focused and like study with one teacher, but then you pick the wrong teacher. It's better to find the teacher that you really resonate with. That's usually the right teacher, but you need to make sure that it's the right one, for example. And not just say, okay, well that's a good example. I'm just going to watch videos of this person and I'm going to learn astrology doing that. Like, for example, that's not really the best strategy either. It needs to be the right, you need to be aiming in the right way. So, or let's say something else like, okay, I've decided I'm going to focus and I'm really going to go to medical school, or I'm really going to be a doctor. And instead of then saying, okay, I'm going to go to medical school and learn, it's like, I'll learn by watching online videos. That's going to be my focus. Well, you got to aim that bow a little bit better still. So it's not enough to just get focused around some idea, which is the same thing as saying, okay, God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. That means I'm a Christian, that's it. That's a little too hard. You need to focus that bow a little bit better as well. So having the focus and the commitment and dedication of the archer, where our energy is gathered and measured and cool. You know, the archer isn't like jumping around like a crazy person before he shoots. He's measured. Look at the calm, the focus. Right? You can't be jittery. Otherwise, just a little bit of wavering at this point can send the arrow hundreds of feet off target. Well, maybe not hundreds, but let's say dozens of feet. So the difference between, landing 15 or 20 feet away from your target is different between that and that. If you're here, you hit the target. If you're here, you've missed it by 20 feet. Just that little bit. This is why we need to be precise. We need to be accurate. We can't just be blasting our energy all over the place. And again, that's the focus of Sagittarius, is to stay focused. Then this is why teachers talk about not studying with 100 different gurus at the same time. Not because they're saying that they're the right one, but it's because you can't learn anything if it's 100 different teachers. I say this to my students, and it's not because I say I'm the only one that's right. I'm saying while you're studying with me, at least, or when you come into this class, don't bring other teachers' teachings in, because it's going to confuse everybody and it's going to confuse you, because you can't take that, you can't really do it that way. For any given time, you need to be focused just on that thing. So ponder these lessons: the quality of Saturn, focus, concentration, stillness, the willingness to work through and persevere and be dedicated, and how that perseverance and dedication shows the greatness in your life. No matter what it is that you've done that's great, there's been a strong component of Saturn in it. And sometimes it's something like raising your kids, or anything that you've gotten a lot of meaning out of, and purpose, and direction. Saturn was there, had to be. Because we're always ready to give up. Things are hard. It's hard to stay the course. One of the hardest things we do is to stick with it, even when we know we're walking into more crap. We say, even though there's more crap, I'm not giving up. As long as I got life in me, I'm showing up. That's Saturn. And it goes into Sagittarius, which is, what's the point? What's the purpose? What's the meaning of this? And I need to hit the goal. I need to stay focused on the goal. That's Sagittarius. But as you can see, they're sort of competing energies. So aim well, archer. Let that arrow fly after being cool and composed and making sure that the target is worthy of your attention. Right? Make sure that your teachings are pure. That's what makes the target correct. Make sure that you've gathered enough evidence for your faith. Evidence, Gemini, for your beliefs, Sagittarius. Then you know to have faith in that. And then steady your gaze and let the arrow fly. Kaboom!